In 1998, Thomas and Friends released one of its most critically acclaimed episodes of all time. Much loved throughout the fandom, Duncan Gets Spooked has become a regular name popped up when people ask, what is the best episode of Thomas and Friends? However, as much as I love the episode itself, the main thing that draws me to this episode is the bizarre history of one of the models of its key character. This is the mystery of the Season 5 Duncan large-scale model. So, you're probably asking, why did I make this series? Well, for a long time I've had a huge interest in the behind-the-scenes history of Thomas and Friends. I made this series to create more exposure to mysteries that I find personally interesting. Mysteries that haven't really been covered much before. For this reason, I won't be discussing things like the small-scale narrow-gauge engines or the Perspex models versus the brass models. However, mysteries that I find interesting. This could be anything. Episodes, production material, props. So, without further ado, let's get into the rabbit hole. So, to recap. In 1998, large-scale models and narrow-gauge characters were built, bar that of Zahanna and Duke due to budget reasons. This was because the original small-scale models didn't work very well behind the scenes. Due to their small size, a lot of the mechanisms had to be cramped in, which caused poor performance on stuff like the side rods and the eye mechanism. As a result, combined with the fact that Season 5 would use new camera equipment, the crew decided to make new large-scale models. These large-scale models proved to be very successful and became the main models used of the characters going forward. That is except for that of Duncan's large-scale model. For those of you who didn't know, the crew really didn't like Duncan's large-scale model used in Series 5. They didn't like it because the proportions were nothing like small scale. So, as a result, for Series 6, they decided to make a new large-scale Duncan, more accurate to that of the small scale. Bearing in mind that the original Season 5 large-scale model was only used in one episode, that being Duncan Gets Spooked. What makes this more interesting is the fact that that is the last episode we see the model. An episode involving ghosts and paranormal things happening on a bridge. Kinda odd that that model disappeared after the episode. Bearing in mind that the episode was very spooky in tone, and the episode's topic was that of a ghost engine. However, I think it's just one big coincidence if you ask me. You probably have one question. What happened to the model after Series 5? Was it used to make the new one? Or was it scrapped? Well, the answer is a bit muddly. Well, based on some information we know, Most of the small-scale models were in fact refurbished for Season 6, well, mid-refurbished, but midway through their refurbishment, the decision was made to just use the large-scale models. So the models that were refurbished remained in a mid-refurbishment state. I would imagine that Duncan's Season 5 large-scale model would start some form of refurbishment and was planned to be used in Series 6. He was likely refurbished around the same time the other large-scale narrow gauge engines were, like Scholarly, Rheneas, Rusty, and Peter Sam, but likely when the decision was made to rebuild him, they never completed his refurbishment. Meaning wherever the prop is now, he's likely in a mid-refurbishment state until he is restored. Now, based on the ruler photos we have, I can safely say that no parts of the original Season 5 large-scale model was reused on the Series 6 one. The only things I can see that they might have reused based on the ruler photos are the buffer beams, as they seem to be quite a match. As well as that, if you look closely on Duncan's Season 6 large-scale model, you can see on the Series 6 model that the buffer beams don't perfectly line up to the rest of the model, and there's a bit of a dip before going to the buffer beam, meaning that they were likely reused from the Series 5 one. The buffers themselves, however, don't seem to be the same, as well as the coupling hook. Based on the ruler photos, one pair of buffers looks a bit larger than the others and a bit more thicker, so they likely didn't reuse the buffers themselves, and the coupling hook doesn't seem to match it either. So, you're probably wondering, where is the model now? Well, it's definitely not with Mattel, so from what I can assume, it was likely thrown out during the skip incident back in 2009. For those unaware, the skip incident is when Hit Entertainment disposed of several props they deemed they didn't need anymore. These props were usually duplicate models or set pieces or figurines. In the case of the duplicate models, they were usually older versions of the characters, like older models. For example, James' original plastic model was disposed of in favour of the brass ones, because they didn't think they needed the plastic one anymore, since of course they had the brass ones. So from what I can assume, Duncan's Season 5 large-scale model was likely disposed around this time, alongside the small-scale models of the narrow gauge engines, due to the large-scale models they were using then being the main models of the characters used. Duncan's Season 5 large-scale model was simply not needed because they had the Season 6 one, and of course the small-scale models weren't needed because they already had the other large-scale models. So, wherever the model is, it likely is in not good condition. Now, considering that all the props that were disposed back in the skip incident, at least in terms of engines, have found themselves in some form of fan preservation, whether it be from people who directly saved them back in the day, or resellings, it likely will turn up in fan preservation soon. When? I don't know, but I guess it would have to have a thorough restoration before being presentable. However, for now, we can only hope that someday the model will be revealed. I'm Monica020, and this has been the behind the scenes mysteries of Thomas and Friends.